Well, hello. It's time for another exciting episode of Pens in Use. This is the show where I talk about the fountain pens and inks I've been using throughout the week. And I've changed the view slightly because I'm outdoors. And yeah, it's getting towards evening, but it's spring. The leaves are starting to sprout on the trees out there. So, yeah, it's late in the evening, you can't tell, but I wanted to share it. And it's raining, so hey, win, 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 win. So, let's dive into it. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old, and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. Hey, I talked about a lot of things, so, feel free to comment, but one of the big ones to me was the discovery of this dinosaur park that you're going to see a little bit later on. What are some things that you've lived in your area forever and only just discovered? Let us know down in the comments. So, let's take a look at some pens. Alright, so these are the pens I've been using this week. From left to right, I have my Wality Airmail 69P, which is the pen I did a first impression of this week. I have a Toes Penkala Mirna, which I believe was here last week. I'm finally back to my Lamy 2000 as my daily writer, just as school's about to end, but hey, here it is. Of course, I have my Nakaya Decapod Twist. I had to ink up my other Lamy 2000. This one has a broad nib. This one has a fine nib. Yeah, just had to. I have my Platinum 3776 on its last few gasps of ink, but so be it. It's still here. I have my beloved, beautiful, gorgeous, love it very much, Parker Duofold International with the citrine finish. And I have a pen I call Senator Cummerbund. It's a vintage Senator pen. I don't know its model number, but I call it Cummerbund because it kind of has a cummerbund there. So if those of you who keep track of how many vintage pens does he use, 1, 2 for sure. This is Croatian. And then this one dates from the 90s, so I don't know, one of these days we're going to have a discussion about what's vintage, what's merely old, what is antique. There's a couple terms for pens that I got called on using some sloppy language last week, and maybe I need to do a video one of these days where I talk about those terms. So let's see how these pens write. Of course, as always, the writing will take place in this cognitive surplus seafood-flavored journal, but not for much longer. So enjoy it while it lasts. All right, so my first pen is, of course, this. Sorry, I had to sneeze there, so I edited that out to spare your eardrums. Is this Wality Airmail 69P. Was sent to me by a viewer. Has some nice details I like. I've actually written a lot with it. It turns out to be a very pleasant pen to use, actually. I mean, no Lamy 2000, but a very pleasant pen to use. So, I got a comment. I've had this comment before that, "Gee, Mr. Squirrel, your Parker Quink washable blue seems to be a lot darker than mine." Not airspace, airmail. And yes, you're right. This is darker blue than my memories of Parker Quink washable blue from, when I first entered the fountain pen world. But all I know is that every time I buy Parker Quink washable blue, every pen I put it in, I've been through several bottles now, it's always like this. So I don't know if there's several formulations going around or what's up with all that, but I legitimately have been using Parker Quink washable blue now for several years. I don't know what else to say. Again, I have been through several bottles of the stuff. Next to black ink, this is probably the ink I use the most. And, yeah, that's dark. And yet, I know what you're talking about because I remember it as a lot more pale. Don't have an answer. My next next pen is a Toes Penkala Mirna. I flippin' love this finish. You know, a beautiful pen of the 1970s or 60s, I'm not sure which. Came out of then Yugoslavia, but the company is a Croatian brand. Actually, a Polish man was the founder, even though it's a Croatian brand. Oh, and we have an Intarsia nib. Last week the name escaped me. Intarsia, which is a fancy way of saying it. It looks kind of like a goddamn fingernail. So we have a Toes / Penkala Mirna. This pen is always awful when I first ink it up. It struggles to write. It's miserable. It needs about 24 hours for the ink to saturate the feed, but then you get this beautiful line variation once you get going with it. This ink is one of my favorites. It's Rohrer and Klingner. Alt-goldgrün. I have some related inks, so when I use this one up, I will switch to the related inks. But I already know I like this one the best. So I'll be switching back to this one when I use up those related inks, because it is such a nice color. So yeah, looking forward to using up this color family so that I can be permanently using this one. And now, that special moment where the angels begin to sing. The Lamy 2000 is back, baby! Just in time for the last full week of school. I don't care. I'm excited. I'm going to use this into summer for a while. You know, I'll do my typical thing where I take part of summer and use other pens, but I just so happy to have this pen inked up again. When I first wrote with it, I'm just like, yes, this is right. Fine point nib. One thing I am discovering is that maybe I need an extra fine to write on some of the school paper. Don't know. But anyway, the ink in it is Pelikan Edelstein, so it's their expensive ink. Onyx. Why did I buy a bottle of Pelikan Edelstein Onyx? Don't know. Had an obsession for a while with black inks. I have a lot of black ink. So, probably I bought it as part of that obsession. Now I'm trying to reduce my collection of all colors. So, rather than, I've mentioned before, black ink is the color I buy the most often. Rather than continuing to buy black inks, I'm just going to use this one up. It is a good one, but the bottle is annoying. And really, is it that much better than some of the others? Is it that much better than regular Pelikan Black? Or Parker Quink Black? Alright, so this is my Nakaya Decapod Twist. Beautiful pen. I had a remark, which I'm going to riff on later in the video, about sometimes when I go to cap it, the facets don't line up. And this person remarked about just don't over-tighten. And you're right. You can damage pens when you over-tighten. So I'm going to do a little riff here when I get to the talky part of this video about people who are just rough on stuff. Because you know them. Some people are just really rough on stuff. Of course, this is a very nice writer. It doesn't disappear in my hand like the Lamy 2000 because it is so beautiful and so expensive. So yes, thank you viewers for making sure I get advertising dollars so I can afford a pen like this, because I guarantee on my teacher's salary, I never would have bought this pen. So the ink in it is Akkerman. I think if I had to just rely on my teacher's salary, I might have allowed myself one nice pen once in my life like this. Might have been this one, who knows. But luckily the YouTube income has given me the opportunity to own several like this, and then I get to share them with you. This green is, it's nice, it's nothing special. When I use it up, I'm going to keep the bottle because the Akkerman bottles are quite nice, but I'm not going to try and replace this color. I think Pelikan dark green is just as good, and it's a lot cheaper and easier to find. So, yeah. Glad I have the bottle. Glad I had the opportunity to experience Akkerman, but it is what it is. I had to ink up another Lamy 2000. This one doesn't show the wear of the other one because it's not my daily writer. I ink it up, use the ink in it, and then let it sit for a while, so it hasn't been worn as smooth as the other one. But it is a broad nib because we have a Lamy 2000. And I think the broad in this pen has kind of a stub-like character. So the ink in it is Krishna, which is an Indian brand, Writer's Night. And I think this is a beautiful color and has just such an evocative name. Some of the Krishna inks, just like any brand, just leave me cold and I just feel nothing for them. This is one, and I don't know if it's because of the color or if it's because of the name, but it just really, really speaks to me. Now the bottle is getting toward empty, and I have other dark purples, so like I have said with some of the other inks here, I'll probably use up the other dark purples. Then we'll just have to see, do I come back to this, or will another dark purple win? Haven't decided. One other thing worth noting, which you can see in this quadrant here, the Noodler's broad has a very stub-like character. This is my Platinum 3776. This is the one that they advertise where it's coming out of a glass of wine. A very nice model. Same nib is used on their Nakaya, which is a luxury brand. Mine goes to very extra fine. Into maybe a passable medium or maybe a Japanese broad. The ink in it is Noodler's. Black Swan and English Rose, which is a absolutely beautiful color of red. I like it. Of course, last week and the week before had some controversy because of comments I made about Noodlers. And you know what? Two things to say about that. I may address it more in the talky part of the video, but basically, first of all, yeah, Nathan Tardif screwed up. Didn't own it right away. But second of all, when he did see reason, how long do you hold a grudge? And do you allow for people to be sincerely contrite for things? I love this finish. This is beautiful. Why did Parker quit making this? Don't know. Maybe it's expensive. Don't know. I do know that there are some Chinese pens that cost a lot less than this one using similar finishes. So it can't be that expensive. I don't know why Parker quit, but it's gorgeous. And of course I have a medium nib. And this is the international version. So this is the Parker International. There is also a Centennial, which is a little larger. Duofold. This one has a medium nib on it. Parkers tend to write a little broad, and this one is no exception. The ink in it is Lamy bronze. An ink I'm trying to use up. Again, I'm trying to work through that color family. But keep enough going in my rotation to keep me interested, keep you interested. Because we can't have the same 8 inks or whatever showing up every week. But I think it's a very well done orange. I could probably be talked into making this my regular orange, except for the fact that it was a special edition ink. And Lamy sold it for a year and will no longer do so because it's a special edition. If they sell it, it's not a special edition anymore. And my last pen. Senator Cummerbund. There's the Cummerbund. I don't know the models of Senator pens because they don't... It's really hard to find them out. So I do my best. And hope I'm right. So that nib wasn't exactly centered, which is a problem with this pen. I had a Turkish commenter actually suggest a model number for it. Thank you, Google Translate, because I probably couldn't have figured it out without Google Translate because I speak zero Turkish. But I do thank you for that comment. And, I will admit I'm guilty of watching an Italian channel or two and a Polish channel that talk about fountain pens and do not do so in English. And I don't know mostly what they're saying, but they show some cool pens and do some cool things with them, so I will keep coming back. So this has one of those vintage Bach nibs. I think I was trying to show you that earlier and then got distracted. These are very amazing nibs. They were ubiquitous back then, but they write so well. I mean, look at that. The ink in this is Rohrer and Klingner. Almost empty also. And then I'll have a couple others in this color family to use. But this is a strong contender to be the one. We'll see how I like the others. So Rohrer and Klingner, Blue Mare. So just a beautiful blue. I like to call it a turquoise. When my next ink is probably going to be either Monteverde turquoise or else Lamy turquoise. Maybe the Monteverde because I'm close to using that bottle up. Just so attractive. Anyway, yeah, those are the pens and inks I've been using this week. So, over the past week or so, I got some fun ideas from my viewers, and some of this is ideas from my viewers, some of it is just stuff. So we're going to just kind of do a bam, 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 bunch of different topics, and then a big thing at the end. A little bit of Dakota scenery, let's say. So, one of the things that came up from my viewers was a discussion of FA nibs. These are really flexible nibs from Pilot. Now, I was going to ink one up for this week, and I thought of that as I was recording the pen part, so yeah, too late for that. But maybe next week. But anyway, they are very flexible, and this particular viewer was remarking that, well, you can't get them on the Pilot Custom 823 unless you visit Japan, which is true. I had 2 Pilot Custom 823s in last week's pens in use. They're both empty now, so I didn't have either one in this week's pens in use. But the important thing is that you can't get the FA nib here in the United States with those pens. But you can get it with other pens. I bought mine with a Pilot Custom 743. My original idea was I was going to replace the nib in one of my Pilot Custom 823s with it. But I finally decided that no, with a nib like that, I'd rather be able to change inks more quickly. So I'm leaving it in the 743. And I'm thinking about, thanks to the recommendation of the Moto Lisa, getting an ebonite feed for it. So we'll see what happens. But it is a fun nib. I just don't see the need to put it in an 823. Okay, another comment that came up was about this pen. This is the Nakaya Decapod Twist. I talked about how, if you put the cap on incorrectly, then the facets don't line up, which is true. And one of my viewers remarked on, the way the threads are designed, there's probably no way around that. And they said, the biggest thing is don't over-tighten. Now, I think he knew that I'm not going to be rough on my pens. I'm not going to over-tighten, but I will say, some people do. I had a Sharpie, just a regular Sharpie, well, the big thick ones with kind of a chisel tip, in my classroom that I loaned to a student. I got it back, and a day or two later I went to use it, and I tried to pull off the cap, and like, wow, this is, boink, and I pull it off, and there's an inner cap left over the marker tip. Yeah, after the student finished with it, they didn't just cap it, they mushed it on there hard. Now, I don't think they were trying to be harmful, but definitely more rough than the pen deserved. And that's just a thing I've observed with a lot of my students is they are really hard on pens. Gee, I wonder why I won't let you write with my fountain pens. For a long time I used Platinum Preppies as my board markers, and I used Noodler's Wet Erase. I finally gave up on that because I got tired of my hands being stained, but I have refillable dry erase markers now. But the thing is, they would cap them if the kids were writing on the board, and they wouldn't just, it clicked on, push it on hard. Even ballpoint pens, Bic crystals that I have laying on my desk, and they borrow them and they mush the cap on so hard that the cap is deformed. I don't get it. And, even writing on the board, you have students work out problems on the board, and they, I write nicely, my tips stay nice forever. Students like, bam, 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 on the board. Why so rough? And it's not just kids, when adults borrow my classroom for various reasons. I find the same thing with some of them. Just why handle stuff roughly? Just be gentle. Like, my Lamy 2000. I'm not going to force the cap on. Just, it clicked in place. Must be capped. Wality's what's out. The screw stopped screwing. Okay. Maybe edit that. It stopped screwing on, so why keep forcing it further? I remember when I worked in a restaurant, we had a faucet in the kitchen, and for the sink where we wash dishes, and after like the third time replacing the knobs on the faucet, the owner told us, just push it off. You don't have to force it. And, the reason we'd had to keep replacing the faucets is people couldn't just push it till the faucet stopped. They'd like, jam it off. Well, yeah, then it breaks. So, I realized as I thought about this comment that there's a lot of truth there. That people can be really, really rough. And I know I talk to people fountain pen people that, I like to let people borrow my fountain pens. And me? Not so much. You tell somebody, well, don't press down, it's a fountain pen. What? Jam it down on the paper. I don't let just anybody write with my fountain pens. So that's a long way of saying it. It's just kind of amazing how rough some people are. You know, okay, I'm 47 years old. You know, if you're an identity thief, there you go. But I'm on car number 2 in my life. Not many people can say that. And one of the things I will admit that I've seen, especially with younger people, is how flippin' rough they are with their cars. I mean, be gentle. You don't have to race away from the stop sign. Just kind of, ease away. Driving isn't meant to be rough. Just kind of gentle and take care of it, So, I don't know. Part of it, I think, is a kid thing. But like I said, there's adults that way too. And part of it just, I don't know, why are some people so rough with stuff? Why are some people always breaking their cell phone? I've had this one, I'm not sure how long, but since before the pandemic, a lot of years. It's an iPhone 8. I've never broken its screen. I just get along with it, and I'm gentle with it. I don't know. So, that was just a topic a viewer brought up I thought would be worth throwing out there. Maybe you're really rough with stuff, or maybe you're really gentle. I'm not one that babies everything. My stuff all shows symptoms of use, but on the other hand, it doesn't show symptoms of abuse unless I bought it used. It was already abused. Another comment that came up was about Stephen King, and I'm not doing a book review tonight, but I will say one of the things I tend to not like with Stephen King is the endings. He can set things up, he can create great characters, and then the ending you're just like, oof. But one book I thought he did really well was Cujo. And without getting into the details or any spoilers, basically a mother and her young son, very young son, take their ailing car to a man's garage out in the country to get it repaired. The man happens to not be there for whatever reason, and the car breaks down. Well, okay, problem, especially since nobody's there, and this is the era before cell phones and all that. But the owner's dog, in the interim, had been bitten by a bat with rabies. And the dog took real exception to this car being there, to the point that they could not escape the car. So, sitting there with just whatever liquid they had in the car in a thermos, her and her young son, this crazy dog, and anytime they try to get out of the car, the dog would and he'd attack. And okay, yeah, we're not going out there, kind of thing. And made me think of a situation I had. And my parents might want to close their ears for this, but I don't do it so much anymore, just mainly because I don't run into these schools as often. But I used to have kind of a hobby where when I was in an area, I'd look for older schools. I didn't care about the modern buildings like the one where I teach, but older schools. And I would photograph them around North Dakota. So I happen to be in northwestern North Dakota. I'm not sure if I'd moved out here yet or not. But I did have the car I have now because the marks are still on the car. But anyway, I went to a town called Epping. And very cool. Several restored old buildings there and so on. No school left, but, a very cool hardware store and whatever. And, now that I have digital photography, I need to go back there and give you a tour or something. Kind of like I'm going to do later in this video with a thing in South Dakota. But anyway, there was a nearby town called Wheelock. And Wheelock kind of struck my fancy because if you've ever seen the movie or read the book Boys from Brazil, I always think of, what was the actor's name? Can't remember his name, but anyway, he played, usually a good guy, but he was the villain in The Boys from Brazil. He was a Nazi doctor, and I don't want to get into all the all the details, but he greets a man in Lancaster, Pennsylvania with Herr Wheelock, and then kills him. And so, the name like Wheelock kind of struck my fancy, so I had to go see it. Well, not much there. But what was there was the remains of a school. It had burned. There were some beams sticking up and stuff, but it was an old school that had burned. And so I took a few pictures, and back then I was still using film. Then I hear this ruff, 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 ruff. And not the happy sound of a dog like, oh, a person, yay, I love people. It was an angry dog. So I thought, well, shit, I'm getting back in my car. And thank God I did. Because I got in my car. Moments later, the dog throws its paws up on the driver's side window. And he's barking right at the window. And droplets of dog slobber all over the window. And I'm like, oh, shit. And then I realized that Wheelock had unpaved streets, no pavement, and this was early spring, and they were mud. And I'm like, oh shit, what happens if I can't get the car out of here? The houses all looked abandoned. I mean, I'm sure people live in Wheelock, but I mean, at that time, especially with the adrenaline going, I'm like, oh shoot, these are all abandoned houses. And who will know? Nobody even knows I'm here. And, all those things went through my mind. So, I start the car and start moving. And of course, the adrenaline and the wheels start spinning. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to die here. But, I eventually reason came in like, okay, ease up on the gas, just kind of gentle. And meanwhile, the dog's like, his paws. And, finally I got the car moving, got out of Wheelock, got far enough down the highway, pulled over and just did one of these where you're just like, oh my God, I just survived that. And, anyway, that killed any mood to explore anything more that day. I mean, I was done. But when I got home, I looked at the driver's side door, and there were scratches in the paint. And I realized they were from that insane dog. Now, I don't know if the dog had rabies or if he was just a real, sorry, I'm going to swear again, asshole dog, but I have never, until, something happened last year, which we're not going to go into right now. Until that thing that happened last year, I've never been so scared for my life as I was at that time in Wheelock, North Dakota, with that crazy dog. I had a dog come at me here in my little town once. And I wasn't as scared as I was that time. The dog that came at me, adrenaline took over. I went bop right in its chest, and that seemed to calm it down. It ran off. And needless to say, it had jumped on me when I went bop with my fist. That was instinct, no thought to that at all. But that time in Wheelock, where the dog is up on my driver's side door, barking and throwing slobber all over, and you could tell, not a "I love people" type of bark. So, if I ever reread Cujo, that is what I'm going to think about, is that experience in Wheelock, North Dakota. And, back then, no digital photography, no dash cam, no nothing, and no cell phone. And if I'd gotten in trouble, holy cow, what would I have done? So, yeah. Moving on. So I said I have a lot of topics, but I seem to be spending a lot of time on each one. I had a couple of comments last couple of weeks about the nature of my channel. One person said, I came here for the pens, I didn't come for the other stuff. It's like, well, you know what? The other stuff has been here for years, so deal with it. I don't have much else to say other than that. I mean, if you don't like the channel, don't watch it. moving on. I uploaded a video it was this week. Or was it last week? Anyway, whatever week I uploaded it, I had the chance to be in the Black Hills. I recorded some video along Spearfish Creek. It was kind of fun. I was trying to get the sound of the creek in the background. That didn't work so well, but anyway, I like doing videos on location. I was going to do a video this was going to be on location tonight. I had a place picked out in this small town, and then it was raining, so I just thought, no, I'm going to do it in my house. I want to do a video up in the Badlands, maybe more than one. It's kind of fun doing videos on location. The trouble is, audio isn't always the best. I have a nice lapel mic, 2 of them. One's wireless, one isn't. I tried to use to record, and it wouldn't flip and record any audio. So I'm just like, well, hold the cell phone up to my face and use the microphone there. Got a little wind noise, but it wasn't too bad. So I'm not sure what went wrong there, because I've used it before. So I'm going to have to play around. But yeah, I do enjoy videos on location. I do want to do more of them, like I talked about last year. So we'll just have to see what happens. You know, I'm really imagining a Pens in Use where I film. There's a kind of a shelter up in the Badlands here in North Dakota that I think would make a very cool spot to film, especially with the Badlands in the background. And I'm picturing doing it with the sun rising over the Badlands behind me. So and there's no visitors then. So we'll see what happens. But that's one of my goals. And yeah, I want to do a few videos in the Badlands. So we'll just see what happens. There's going to be some garden videos coming. Not going to work in the garden tomorrow, which I thought I was going to because of the rain. It's just a mud hole right now. But I want to pull out some of the old growth, and I want to, deal with some weeds, start grooming it, getting it ready for crops. And my neighbor did some construction, and I have lines of foam something all over tangled in the garden that I'm going to have to collect and throw away. But it won't be tomorrow on Saturday because it's a mud hole. So we'll see about Sunday. But one thing, I'm close to the end of the long sleeves because next week it's going to be very warm. We'll be in the 50s and 60s today. In fact, the heat's on today, which it hasn't been for over a week. We'll be in the 50s and 60s through Sunday, and then we'll start getting into the 70s and 80s. So, yeah, the long sleeves may be disappearing, which, it's about time. School's going to end. I am going to start my last full week of school here, and it's almost over. So, good stuff. One other thing that came up was... I saw that I passed 6,100 subscribers, and the subscriber count went down. And it's just funny, because every time I get to a round number, that's always what happens. You get to the round number, you get a little bit past it, and then it's like people say, wait, we can't give him that. We can't let him have a round number. So they unsubscribe just to drop it down, but my general trend is growth, so I haven't... Well, what the heck? I'm on the internet right now. Let's just look. Let's see how many subscribers I have right now. Let's see if this video makes it drop again. But it's always funny. Just every time I hit a round number, it drops below that round number and then starts climbing again. Yeah, 6,099. So... we'll see. We'll probably get to that round number by next week. We'll pass it and stay there, but I know some of the stuff I put here pisses people off, but whatever. I mean, if this isn't your thing, it's not your thing. I can only be me, and if me bothers you, then don't watch me. when I filmed my Wheel of Time video in Spearfish Canyon, I eventually made my way to Rapid City, mainly because it had rained enough that day that the hike I had planned to take, I just thought, that has a lot of climbing and it's not going to be much fun. So I decided to go to Rapid City. So this little park just seemed like a natural stop on the way to Rapid City. And yes, I did buy way too many used books while I was in Rapid City. Go figure. So let's take a look at the park. Alright, so I'm driving on the Skyline Drive in Rapid City. This is, a way to get to Rapid City if you're feeling particularly brave. You definitely sometimes wonder about guardrails and things. And, don't go too fast because sometimes turns are a little yikesy. But as you travel along Skyline Drive, when you visit 940 Skyline Drive, you get to Dinosaur Park. So, fun fact, Dinosaur Park was dedicated on May 22nd, 1936. It is supposed to contain 7 dinosaur sculptures, and it is on a hill that definitely overlooks the city from really high up. The idea was to, hey, you're visiting Mount Rushmore, here's something else to come see. It was constructed by the City of Rapid City and the Works Progress Administration. Well, of course, during the Great Depression. The dinosaurs themselves were designed by Emmett Sullivan. He also designed the Apatosaurus at Wall Drug in nearby Wall, South Dakota. And I'm sorry, but last time I was in Wall, South Dakota, I wasn't doing digital yet. So I'll have to get back there sometime and show you. Christ the Ozark statue in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, which don't know what that is. And there's apparently a dinosaur world in Beaver, Arkansas, that must have dinosaurs or something. But anyway, you look at the park and it has things like an Apatosaurus, Tyrannosaurus Rex. There's a Triceratops, a Stegosaurus, and let's see if I can say this word. Edmontosaurus annectens. There's also a Protoceratops and a Dimetrodon. I was not able to get to all the dinosaurs because the park itself was under construction, as you have seen, and more. So yeah, it was a bit of a flippin' mess when I visited. I'm hoping that to revisit and give it a better go. But, you walk up and there's a steep walking path. It's a little unclear which way to go because they want you to stay on the trails and help prevent erosion, but then they don't mark what the trails are. And you're just kind of like, I guess this is where I go. I don't know. The dinosaurs themselves are made out of black iron pipe. Apparently it's 2-inch or 5.08 centimeter black iron pipe, and then a wire mesh frame, and then a concrete skin laid over it. Sounds like they were gray originally, but in the 1950s they were painted a bright green with white undersides. And yeah, 1930s dinosaurs, they represent the contemporary thinking of dinosaur design at that time. Now scientists don't believe that dinosaurs had dragging tails and some of the other details that you see, but this is what they were thinking in 1936. The dinosaurs have had some damage. The Tyrannosaurus is missing his finger claws. His hands just kind of end in stumps, so he's had a little bit of amputation over the years. And the Stegosaurus originally had a tail with tail spikes. There's some belief that the tail may have been changed just as, kind of a safety thing. But anyway, kind of a cool place to visit. You get really spectacular views of Rapid City, if you're into that kind of thing. Rapid City has a very nice downtown, but it also has a lot of stroads and strip malls and such that are bleh. But very cool to visit. And then, the Skyline Drive, if you're not afraid of heights, because, again, some of the roads are a little yikesy and you get some very sharp turns. A very interesting place to visit. So I will come back to some of my driving footage to close you out, both on Skyline Drive and maybe a bit of downtown Rapid City, South Dakota. So, glad I visited. I'm surprised it took this long. Alright, so that was the Dinosaur Park in Rapid City, South Dakota. I mean, don't plan to visit Rapid City to see that park. That park is good for an hour, maybe 2 hours of walking around. And then you're done and ready to move on to other attractions. But it might be worth visiting while you're in Rapid City. And it just made me think, I've lived here in southwestern North Dakota for 17 years, and it wasn't until this winter that I even knew that this park existed. What hidden gems in your area have you discovered long afterward? That's one for me. So, anyway, I want to thank you for watching. And if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens, both old and at all price points, and visit obscure spots in the Dakotas, maybe Montana or Wyoming, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, I brought up a lot of different topics in this video, but I think the big one, to me, what gems in your area did you not discover until much later? And are there gems in your area that you keep thinking, doggone, I gotta check that out, but you haven't done it yet? What's keeping you? There's a whole lot there in that subject. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.